Seeing it get made for the third time is, I don't know, it's interesting because you see another artist's take on the film. And that's what's so important about post-production, you know, because you as a director, there's nothing stopping me from wanting to edit the whole thing myself, but it's really important to have a third party come in and say, okay, look at what we shot. Do we have a movie, yes or no?
My initial impression of the project was that it was a very ambitious story, and it's a very unique story, and it's a very emotional story. There's a lot of facets of a Joe Kusic production in this film. There's not a lot of dialogue. There's a lot of moments that are that we just kind of let watch on screen. It's a lot of intensity, a lot of action, and just sort of a lot of introspective into a character. So I sort of had a general gist of what Joe was going for from the moment he was penning the script, and going into the editing process, it was pretty simple to sort of understand the feel that Joe wanted to bring to his project.
The first time I saw the first full cut of it, I was like, this is the worst. I don't think we have a movie. It doesn't flow well, doesn't do this. Second cut was only a half cut, and it was, well, we got something. The third cut, I got genuinely excited, and I was listening to it, and I would actually end up clapping because it's like, okay, I've worked so hard to make this movie, and it's finally coming together in a way that I actually think is pretty good. And seeing Cian edit, it's like, okay, that's working. Because I trust his word, because he's a good filmmaker in and of himself. So Cian understands how a story should flow. He understands what I want the story to be. It starts with a conversation. What do I see the movie being? What emotional beats are in the script that we shot? And what do I want the audience to feel at certain places?
As the role of the editor, I get to sort of bring some of that out and kind of bring my own take to certain facets of the story. I love editing projects because you're sort of given this rubric, or you're given this sort of blank slate, and you're like, here's all the footage that you have, here's sort of the general storyline we're going for. Take those creative limitations and make something that is the best version of that. So the editing process is all about making that film again and making it with a new, fresh set of eyes. It's a whole nother step of the storytelling. It involves making a lot of decisions that maybe Joe would not have thought of in the pre-production or in production. It sometimes means making decisions that are hard, such as cutting shots, making choices where it's, you know, where did that line of dialogue go? And it just, for the pacing of this movie, it didn't fit.
And that's one thing that myself and Cian have established, is that when he's working on the movie, I don't get to really see what he's doing. I can have a cup of tea. If he has any questions, he'll call me or whatever, and I'm usually about a minute away. That way he can just text me or whatever if he has any questions. But we have this distance between it because I'm too attached to the movie. He's able to make that decision without me being there. But it's good to have that separation because then I'm able to separate myself from the film and look at it more objectively once I see the cut. And then I can make a critique and say, okay, I see what you did here and it's good, although I feel like we should cut to this shot. And so for example, the ending fight scene, we shot it a very specific way, especially on the reshoot day. When you cut it together, cut it this way, because I know we have this shot and I know we have this shot. So if you cut it together this way, boom, it's gonna sell the impact a lot more.
So in the editing process, you receive a lot of feedback, and it's important to have that feedback, even if it's criticism. Sometimes that's the most helpful thing to be receiving. Not every piece of feedback is going to be something necessarily you want to implement. You want to make sure that you're implementing the notes that will actually improve the film and holding on to the things that you know work best.
You shouldn't have yes men review your movie. People who just are friends with you and they'll say yes to anything and they'll be like, well, that's great. No, you have to send it to people that you respect and people who respect you as a filmmaker and you respect them. So you have to have that mutual respect in the sense that, hey, I'm letting you watch this movie because you've seen my other stuff, and also I respect you as a filmmaker and I hope you do as well. The process of receiving notes from Scoggins has been a roller coaster because it went from, hey, you should cut here, or you should do this, to, oh, wow. That was good. And I think the most important note that he gave me was that he looked at me and he said, this doesn't look like a student film. So getting notes from professors is really good, but also friends and also and I will call them colleagues.
Receiving that feedback and implementing the notes, and then once that part of the process is finally done, calling picture lock, which means that we're not making any more changes to the edits that we've created. This is the final timeline for the film. Once that's done, it can be sent off to color, it can be sent off to sound, it can be sent off to Amaris for score, and so they'll take that picture lock and begin to craft their various sections of the edit.
In my opinion, score is probably the most important part of a movie. And it's because I believe, and I've said this before, that any live action movie should be a silent film. Your shots and the story of the shots and the characters should be able to carry the movie enough that you don't need dialogue. Use your dialogue like your budget, very sparingly.
I had a lot of conversations with Joe in the beginning of pre-production. He was showing me what his influences were. He was showing me playlists. He was showing me different songs of sounds that he was kind of empathizing with for the film. I love talking with Joe about music and movies. We both share the love of certain composers. Joe really has a great feel for what a scene should sound like, which really helps me in my process because I know what he wants it to sound like. I just input that into my knowledge base and just see what comes out on the other side.
But he's created this very unique sound to the movie, a more ambient sound, because I prefer ambient scores that can come in and be powerful and can have that. But if you have that emotional through line, that ambience to it, then it gives the film a certain level of, okay, this is the tone of the movie that's gonna ride the movie all the way through. But then when the score has to punch, it then will punch and also be supported by the ambience, which is created by Amaris.
And then the final step is taking the sound that Emmanuel will have done, the score that Amaris has done, and the color that I've done, and mixing it all together and creating the final export of the film.
Seeing Kaiketsu at the senior screenings was a crazy experience. As a filmmaker, you wonder if your story beats are even gonna hit. And so sitting in the audience and then hearing them applaud was absolutely a joy to hear, and knowing that everybody's hard work paid off and you could audibly hear it.
The plan for Kaiketsu imposed after everything, start sending it to film festivals. It all comes down to, I think the film is interesting enough that it can stand on its own 2 feet and be a unique vision. That's something that people haven't seen before, that it can go to an international film festival. I mean, knock on wood, hopefully.
I'm really excited to see where this project goes. I'm a big fan of the cast. I'm a big fan of all the shots that we got. This is very much a film with a strongly backed vision, and I'm very proud of where it's at so far.
I don't care if I win any awards. I really don't care about that. But it would be fun to send it to somewhere and be like, hey, at least my name got in. At least I got out there. And the thing that makes me the most excited is that I care so much about this movie. I put so much time. I literally put my blood, sweat, and tears into this movie. And everybody else who worked on the movie did as well. So I'm so excited to finally be able to share it with mass people, be able to send it out to festivals, do a festival run. So it won't be on YouTube or for the public eye for a while. But sending it out to people, sending it out to movie screens, you know, the fact that the possibility is out there, it's insane. I'm excited. I hope that happens.
Thank you so much to everybody who watched this series and enjoyed watching it, and thank you so much to everybody who made this movie possible. And now, enjoy a short preview of Kaiketsu.
My name is Sam Lamarck. I am story lead for Da Capo. Da Capo is a first-person horror game that follows Thea, our main character.